Hi, and welcome to Let's Get Distracted, episode 49. Tonight we'll be talking about tapping, and I have a special guest with me, Erin Soliz. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you, Erin. So many of you know from Annapolis, Maryland. Many of you know after 30 years as a corporate tax accountant, I went out on my own last January and formed Health and Taxes. There are only two things certain in life, death and taxes. I'm here to help you flip that to health and less taxes. Every Sunday night, I come to you live on YouTube to educate you a little bit on health and wellness, to get you distracted, to make you step away from the TV and learn something educational. Tonight, we're going to learn what is tapping, how you can benefit from it, how to learn more about it. And with that, I have Erin here to give us that education. Let me tell you a little bit about Erin. Erin Soliz, after 30 years in corporate America, she left the 9-to-5 world and set out on a journey of self-discovery and found so much more. With a degree in accounting and corporate finance, as well as an MBA, she struggled with why her personal finances weren't where they should be and why she felt stuck in life. Leaving no stone unturned, she found a remarkable transformation through EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, or tapping. She now teaches individuals from around the globe how to step up, stand out, and be paid at the highest level in their field. By delivering the same high-impact transformation to others, she helps to clear the inner blocks to wealth and success, which leads to a new confidence and empowerment, making getting to the next level achievable. And with that, once again, thanks for being here, Erin.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks so much. Yeah, so tapping. It's an interesting topic, and I don't know. It's one of the biggest things you've never heard of. I think that's the best way to put it. Just a little bit about my journey. I had quit my job and was not sure what to do, and then for my next chapter in life, and then COVID hits, and then I become a teacher to my children, which I am not set out to be a teacher for small children. So in that process, I had a lot of stress, internal stress, and I was feeling it in my body. I was, going to acupuncture, going to chiropractors. I mean, at one point I could barely walk. My back hurt so much. And I go to the chiropractor and he's like, I think your stomach muscles just aren't as strong as they need to be. And I was like, well, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, they haven't been that strong in 10 years. So I don't know why something happened just now. But as I was putting the pieces together, I noticed that when my children went fully remote again in the fall, that Friday is when it happened. The next day, my back went completely berserk. And so as I was going through the motions of that, I realized that, and I started to tap. I had just found this new modality, and I started to tap on my back pain. So grant you, I've had it for 3 weeks at that point, and in utter pain, in 5 minutes, it was gone.
Wow.
I mean, it's just like, how is this possible? So that leads me to the tapping. And during this whole time too, I was having episodes of asthma attacks that I haven't had since I was 13. That is completely gone just by working on some inner, subconscious work within myself. So I've seen physical transformation as well as, a mindset transformation as well. So.
Well, Erin, thanks for sharing that with us. I can imagine the stress of teaching two small children and doing all the things and all the juggling is a lot, but even still, there was more to just that back pain. So tell us a little bit more exactly what is tapping? What does that mean?
So it basically, in your brain, there's a part in your brain called the amygdala, and it's basically the fight or flight. I'm sure you've heard of that. It's the stress response. So when our ancestors were getting chased by a mountain lion or I don't know, some kind of massive animal. They were able to escape that by being able to turn on the adrenaline and run. Well, come to 2021, we don't have animals chasing us, or our real level of I guess getting eaten by an animal is pretty small, unless you're traveling in the Northwest and you're hiking in the mountains or things like that. So what happens in the present day, our stress response is never turned off, and our body's not meant to have that sustained amount of stress in our body. And so our cortisol levels go up. So by tapping, you're actually hitting the acupuncture points and telling your amygdala, basically, it's okay, relax. There's no one chasing you. There's no imminent fear or things that, because basically all the things that are happening now are all in our mind. It's that, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? How am I going to do on that test? Oh my gosh, look at my bank account. I don't have enough money to pay my rent. Like, those are all things that aren't going to kill you in the short term. But so the tapping, you actually work on 9 points. Most of them are in your upper torso and your head. And as you're tapping, you talk about the negative. So you talk about the stress. And as you're doing that, so I'll just kind of demonstrate. You kind of go on the eye, around the eye, underneath the nose, the chin, the collarbone. This one I could stay on all day. It's just such a stress relief. Under the arm, and then above the head. So as you're going through that circuit, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if you miss one, there's been studies that if you miss one, it's not a big deal. As long as you're hitting the points, it doesn't really matter the order, but that's the order that I do it in. And as you're talking about the stress, your body's kind of reacting to it, and it's invoking that emotion or that feeling. And as you're doing that, you kind of say, and I'm okay. And your brain shuts down and you become more calm. You can be more resourceful. You can make better decisions, because when we make decisions in a high stress state, it's not going to be pretty for anyone. So you want to calm your brain down and make good decisions. And so that's the gist of it. It basically takes the acupuncture points of Eastern medicine and then mixes it in with Western psychology.
I think that's so interesting. And you're right. We don't have that. We still have that fight or flight, but we're just not faced with it. And it's a really good point that was only occasional, but we've gotten ourselves in this state of living, and maybe a lot of us have slowed down, or maybe a lot of us has sped up in COVID, because we have to provide for our children 24/7 and teach them and all these things. But our body has been put under more stress, worrying about catching it, being safe, how our loved ones are faring, and not being able to see our loved ones, and all these different things. So I hear you with that constant stress, and that our body isn't used to it, so it's overdoing it. And I like this idea of the tapping. So now, is this? So I'm assuming anybody can benefit from tapping, right?
Yes, I mean it's used. The VA is using it for post-stress or post-traumatic stress syndrome. They're seeing that vets that have had 30 years of running those scenarios in their head of war, or things that they've been exposed to, within 4 to 10 sessions, within four 1-hour sessions, they can be neutralized, and they're no longer having those reactions. So that's a huge one. But people can use it for weight loss. I mean, you can kind of talk to yourself about why you're overeating or why you're addicted to sugar. I've actually used that one, and it was funny. I would go up to candy and I'd be like, no, I don't want it. Like it truly affects your subconscious at that level. But I mean, chronic pain, and then you can take it to the next level too, as well as you can work on your confidence and also empowerment and, getting things done, not procrastinating. So it's the full gamut. I mean, it's truly amazing what you can use tapping for.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you had mentioned previous Obviously, when we were talking kind of these four phases, the four phases, the healing, the beliefs, empowerment, and that kind of next up leveling. So tell us a little bit about the phases.
Yeah. So for the niche that I'm going to focus on is mostly in the financial realm, as well as just kind of getting to that next step of achieving the goals that you want to. So the first step is the healing. So you kind of work with people to work within their family paradigm. So a lot of times, people have ideas about money. They were told as children, money doesn't grow on trees. That was a big one in our house. Just think about your childhood and what did you hear over and over about money? Maybe rich people are not nice, or they're not giving, they're not kind, or just any kind of negative about money, and that as a child is burned into your subconscious. So that makes you not want to step out of the limits and achieve more and earn more money, because you don't want to break that rule. The next phase is going into being able to identify big goals and basically thinking that they're achievable for you. Because how many times have you sat down and wrote out your goals for the next 5 to 10 years? Not many people have done it, because most of the time we just kind of shy away from it. But the next phase is actually going into that and being able to write down your goals and seeing yourself able to achieve it, because you have the confidence in yourself. And then the third one is just more empowerment. So you're able to not procrastinate and basically know that you're worth it. You're able to do the big things and go after it. And then the final one is just, the additional motivation and the consistency. So you can just keep going and achieving at the higher level. You're constantly looking for that next, that next ring. I think one point to mention as well is that, a lot of people think of, if I make more money, then I'm going to have to work harder, and maybe I will, lose my health. I'll lose my relationships. During this process, you're able to identify ways and be more creative, work smarter, not harder. So this is, getting people around that as well. So they're not like, oh my gosh, I can't double my income. If I double my income, I'm going to have to work 80 hours and then I can't be with my children and then I can't see my family. It's not that. It's ways to be creative and be able to get to the next level that inspires you and keeps you going. And because a lot of people just, they're just kind of going through the motions, and they're maybe working a ton, but they're not working on the right things. So finding ways to show people, this is what you should be working on. This is what you should be focusing on.
Yeah, I think you said a lot there in those phases. I hear you. People often equate working harder as getting ahead, or what they have to do to get ahead. And then they start making trade-offs, so that working harder comes at a price, trading off family, trading off health. There's all these trade-offs. So working with someone and coaching them through that, those limiting beliefs, or that belief that they've had forever, that you just have to keep working harder, and how to get through that and find different ways. I think there's a lot of value in that to a lot of people.
Right. And the way to do that is to calm your mind and to get into that resourcefulness and really find ways. It's like, if you just be quiet and you listen, you'll find the next right step.
Yeah. So by doing this tapping technique, you can get to that calm. I know for a lot of us with a lot of anxiety, or our minds are racing because we're always on to the next thing. We're not taking time, or we're not pausing and listening to ourselves. So I guess part of this process is being able to calm your mind to listen, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because because that mind racing, that's part of the fight or flight. It's fight or flight or freeze. And sometimes we are frozen in just a downward spiral because it's like, that's what we're comfortable with. It's kind of an oxymoron to it's like your debt level or your savings level might not be in a great place. But it's what's comfortable to you. So instead of reducing that debt or increasing your savings, you're actually going to stay where you are or increase your level of debt or, spend all your savings because that's what's comfortable to you and what's comfortable in your family paradigm. So it's truly interesting. As I was reading the book, this is the book that kind of opened my eyes. It's called Tapping into Wealth by Margaret Lynch. And it just is full of all those aha moments where you're just like, wow, this is what's going on with me. Like, I feel like the book was written for me.
Oh my gosh, right. I'll type that in the comments here for our audience if they're interested in reading that. But yes, one of the questions I was wondering is, how long does it last? Like, so how many sessions does someone need to attend to start moving forward? Is it effective off the first? You mentioned in your story just how quickly you felt relief, but what can a normal person expect as far as how quickly will they find relief, and then maybe how long does it last, or how often do they need to be doing this?
Right. So when you first start, you should gauge yourself. So when you're feeling anxious, your body's overwhelmed, or you're thinking about something, you go into a visualization of, this is how my life is, or this is what's going on. You feel that pressure or that anxiety in your body. So we usually gauge from 0 to 10. So if you're off the charts, you're at a 10, you'll start tapping. And as you go through it, you'll get to the point where it's like you almost get overwhelmed. Sometimes you can actually go up, but as you tap, you'll notice people start yawning, maybe crying, and that's actually the release of the energy. So it might be sadness or embarrassment that's coming up within you. And as you get to the anger, when you're angry at yourself, you're angry at someone else, that's actually, you're at the cusp of just like releasing the energy, and you get into the empowerment phase. So it's all depending on how deep you go within each session. So, I mean, you can go pretty deep and erase 30 years of a trauma if you go deep. And then, it's a point when you kind of have to gauge yourself. I mean, you honestly could do one session and it's gone. I haven't had back pain since I did that 5-minute session. So that's just one example. But then if if you're dealing with family paradigms or, not feeling good enough, that could be a more routine tapping. So it's depending on what you're tapping on. If you're having, some kind of chronic pain, you probably could see it kind of lighten up. So you're at a 10, you're freaking out. And then as you're tapping, you finish the tapping session, and then you ask them, so where are you now? Let's say they're at a 5. If they're still at a 5, you should still probably tap again. So you kind of tap until you get to a 0. You truly can get to where it has you're neutral. There's no feeling, there's no emotion based on whatever they're, basically was stressing them out before. So it's to the point where you get to a 0. Once you get to a 0 and you've cried or you've yawned, you've feeling, you can physically feel the energy kind of leaving your body. Once you get to that point, you probably don't have to tap, tap anymore. But like for motivation, productivity, there's tappings you can do on a daily basis that kind of gets you more in like a peak state. So it varies, but for me, for the back pain, it was one session and done.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I want our listeners to understand too that like your back pain, we think of, someone's got to put the pressure or do something to your lower back or wherever that pain is. And no, we're talking about these acupuncture points on your face, your collarbone, your head, and that's relieving your back. I find that really fascinating. And the point you were just making, there's not a given time. A session can be a little longer, a little shorter. It's based on need, what you're going through at that moment, and then becoming kind of a habit, something that you do on a daily basis if you're really looking to up level your game and continue tapping into the best version of yourself, right?
Right, for sure.
So you mentioned Margaret's book. What are some other resources if people are interested in learning more about tapping?
So what got me into it from the get-go, and this is another book, The Tapping Solution by Nick Ortner. There's also a documentary that's fascinating. He takes like 10 people with all different issues. There's a vet that has post-traumatic stress syndrome. There's people that have phobias from snakes, spiders. There's someone that had constant knee pain, someone else that had, a back surgery. They basically had their back fused together, and she always had this back pain, but it was really truly just in her head, because after this weekend, you see the transformation in all these people. So I watched the documentary called The Tapping Solution. I read the book Tapping Solution. There's also an app on your phone. So you can download this app and basically type in any issues that you're having. And there's usually a tapping script that will go through what you should say to yourself. And you have to remember, like when you're going through the scripts, a lot of times the scripts start off very negative, because I mean, that's at the heart of the issue. It's a negative or a bad thing that's happening to you. So you get to that point, and as you get to it, you're saying, I'm okay. And you work through it. And some people are like, but I don't want to bring up the negative. But you have to think about it. If you want to clean your house, you have to find the dirt. And that's kind of how you think about tapping. So,
yeah, that is interesting, because a lot of things we learn to improve our mind is to focus on the positive. But you have to at least identify in the tapping, you have to identify that negative, address it. But in the process, you're telling yourself you're okay, and you're working through the issue and releasing that negative energy. Okay, good.
Yeah, and there's also other people that are, they're kind of like, they've read The Secret, they want to go into abundance, and they want to, manifest all these positive things in their lives. So they're like, I don't want to talk about the negative. But in all actuality, if you're not releasing the negative that's inside of you, the feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, if you don't release that, you can do all the abundance that you want in the world, and your, chance or, manifestations, like it's not going to come to you because you're blocking it. So you have to be able to release that, and then you will start seeing things just show up. So I think that's an important point, that people always want to go straight to, like, I just want to think positive. I just want to be, I just want to have a perfect body, and I want to have all this money. But it's like, you have to really do the work on yourself before you can get to that point.
That's a really good point, that you have to do the work through it. Because a lot of people are like, I tried it, it didn't work for me. Well, then that's probably something telling you that you have some homework to do, some work to do. So Erin, I know you've been learning this, you've been doing some trainings. I know that you wanted to let our audience know that you're willing to work with some people with a clarity session. Talk about that a little bit.
So the clarity session is kind of the first session that I typically do with people, and it really hones in on those limiting beliefs. So, if you're not earning as much as you want, if you find that you can't, market yourself, if you're in a business and you're kind of scared to actually put yourself out there, doing a clarity session with me would actually be able to identify those limiting beliefs, and then we can tap through that and clear it. So then you would be able to show up and be the best version of yourself. And that that positive energy will then increase your income and increase your reach in your business. So I'm looking for about 5 people to actually do some sessions on, and they can either reach out to me via email or Facebook or Instagram, and we can connect and figure out a good time for that.
Great, Erin. I know I want to be one of those 5 people. We discussed that. I know I could benefit from this. We'll put in the comments after the session how your email or how to contact you. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out directly to Erin and take her up on that clarity session and get started. As we wrap up here, Erin, any final words for our audience?
I just would say just to check it out. I mean, even if you don't need to, or if you think that you don't have any issues, the funny thing is as you start tapping, you can even do the pre-recorded scripts. As you start tapping, things will start showing up and things will start coming out from your subconscious. So there's things in there. You just got to release them. So
I think that's a super good point. We all heard things as children or grew up with some limiting beliefs, and we may think we've dealt with them, moved past them. But until you do these types of exercises, you don't know if they're holding you back. You don't know what's really there. So we encourage everybody to explore and do some homework, see what's there for you, because we can always become a better version of ourselves and make sure that we're showing up for ourselves every day. So Erin, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really interesting and very educational for me and hopefully for our audience. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Let's Get Distracted. Please subscribe to Health and Taxes YouTube channel and share, comment, let me know what other topics of interest that you may have. I'm happy to address those and trying to just make this an educational place for you to come step away from your television, step away from the crazy world, and just learn something new about health and wellness. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.